with Integrity Shows, we produce art fairs in the Detroit area. We started working in art fairs over 20 years ago. Each one's got its own personality. I don't think any of them have more than 120 artists. And that way everybody coming to the show, whether an artist or a buyer, has an idea about what to expect. We started a workshop series, which of course this year turned virtual. Many of them are on our YouTube channel.
Hi, I'm Sharon McAllister. I'm the Executive Director of Art Fest Fort Myers. We have 2 other staff members, but they aren't here today. They are extremely busy working on getting our virtual page built. So yeah, our art festival is the first weekend in February. This year, the 6th and 7th, and we are mounting a virtual show to go with it.
So Mark and I have been working over the summer to create these different seminars, and I had done a seminar on how to produce a video for an artist tour, and there's a lot of great feedback. And then Mark has been working with other executive directors and other art fair promoters and coordinators across the country, and they realized that we needed to go virtual, and the best way of doing that is with video. Okay, a little bit about me. I was a professional marketer for 34 years with General Motors, mostly in advertising. I was responsible for national advertising for Chevrolet for a decade. And that's kind of where I get my video background. But I retired a couple of years ago and am now a full-time artist, mostly dealing with metal. We were talking about that earlier regarding shipping, for example, and why me participating in virtual art fairs might be a little more difficult. And if you want to reach out to me and talk personally about what we talk about today, I am more than willing to help you, because as I said, I'm retired. And all right, so our agenda, we're going to first talk about getting your brand in order. Some of this will be repetitive for those of you that have participated in my seminars in the past, but I always believe it's worth repeating. We're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about developing that content strategy. What do you want to say in your videos? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the construct of the videos. And then it's not just about participating in a virtual art fair and having a great presence, but also what is the follow-up of this content that you post and the responses that you get, and how are you building your clientele and your business post the virtual art fair. So obviously in advance of any art fair or a gallery opening, in this situation a virtual art fair, sharpening the saw is important. So it's the time for you to take a look at your artist statement and make sure that your artist statement is reflective of the portfolio that you plan to show in the art fair. So if you do this on a regular basis, then you're ready to go. If you haven't looked at it in a while, this might be a good time to do that. Especially since the virtual art fair has an opportunity to be national in presence as well as maybe even global. So in many cases, this could be your first impression on future clientele. So you want to make sure that your statement is up to date. Also, you want to take a moment to audit your social media platforms and make sure they're up to date. So your contact information, if your phone number has changed, or if you've got a new email or a new portfolio picture, and that your artist statement, any content about you is consistent across each of your platforms. And specifically because it's virtual and people might get to know you online, they might want to learn more about you and also see more of your work. A website is a great place to do this. So this is also a homework assignment, which is to make sure your website is also reflective of any of your new work, of these videos that you're going to create. You want to make sure those are added there too, as well as any customer policies and shipping policies, etc. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then finally, because this is a virtual art fair and it is an event, you should have a press release prepared and a marketing plan for the show. I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. Okay. So getting your brand in order, there's really 4 areas that you want to think about. First, we want to make sure you have a strong CRM program. We've talked at length about this. This is one of my key passions, and I think it's, matter of fact, Sharon even commented, if the artists that say they're doing well during this pandemic, those artists probably have a really good email list or really good loyal clientele. And this pandemic is a perfect example to prove why a good, strong CRM program is important. So if you don't have one, now's a great time to start one. And that's really about what is your plan to start building relationships with your repeat buyers? How are you staying in connection with them? And then also, what are you doing to show appreciation for referrals? So these are the questions you want to ask yourself and make sure that you've got something planned in advance. You don't want to be caught flat-footed here. You want to make sure that you have your collateral prepared, whether it's like thank you cards or if it's small gifts. You want to have that ready to go before you have your virtual art fair. And then because this is virtual, it's different than in a gallery, it's different than a face-to-face art fair, you have to pretty much think through your customer-friendly policies. What is your return policy? What is your shipping policy? You know, Etsy, for example, shipping is free, so the cost of shipping is incorporated in the retail price. What is your policy going to be on shipping? You know, I buy online all the time, and I'm sure many of you do too. And sometimes the pictures of the items online do reflect the quality of what I purchased. Other times, what I get in the mail is completely different. So you need to think about what your return policy is, because that could be an issue with virtual art fair and buying online. Brand awareness. You want to make sure that your unique brand proposition aligns with the products in the virtual art fair. So if you have, for example, let's say a new series of work that you've been working on over the summer, how are you positioning that within your profile in the virtual art fair? What images are you showing? What videos are you preparing? You want to make sure that what you do defines you differently than the competitor or the artist next to you or below you or on top of you in that virtual art fair. And then does your website homepage align with the fair content? So you want to make sure if there is the art fair has a specific logo or headline, that you are incorporating that into your website also, so that customers visit your website, they recognize that you have or are going to be participating in this virtual art fair. So try to make that connection there to try to increase viewership. We talked briefly about perceived quality. Again, because it's digital, it's virtual, it's a little different than, you know, at an art fair where someone can pick up your piece and look at it or touch it or feel it, right? Or be able to look at it in the light. So how are you communicating your product quality message? So let's talk about developing the content strategy. And this is, what do I need to say in those videos? So you always want to start with the customer first. What are they looking for? And only you know in your category what they're looking for, right? So you have to ask yourself in your communications, how are you meeting their needs, wants, and desires? And also in your artwork, how are you meeting their needs, wants, and desires? So we were talking earlier, I can't remember who was asking the question about, you know, what if I want to show different framing options, for example? Well, that artist knows that having options for framing is important to their client. You probably do a pretty good job on this if you have a really active website, but if you don't, you need to think about that. And you're going to have to do that in your product descriptions in the virtual art fair, because they can't touch it, they can't hold it, they can't, the only visual they have is whatever photography or video you've chosen to provide. So you need to make sure that you're clear about your quality message when you're presenting your work. Secondly, how are you communicating consistent pricing and availability? You know, make it easy for the customer to buy from you. Don't leave them guessing on what your pricing and your availability is. Make sure it's clear if it's one of a kind, or if you have multiples available, or you can make, or your product is available in many colors or different frames, or it can be customized in any way. You want to make sure that you determine what that friendly policy is, and that it's clearly communicated when the customer is reviewing each and every product. Don't make them look for it. That will make the experience better for the customer. And then, you and only you alone know how you can differentiate your unique product proposition. It could be in how you are describing your product, how you are presenting yourself as an artist. It could be the subject matter or the mediums that you use, but you want to make sure that you are clear about why you are unique, and that uniqueness is carried throughout the content that you build for the virtual art fair. And then the last thing that you need to start thinking about is, if you have a brand mark, a logo of some kind, you want to make sure that it is present and distinctive and consistent across all of your marketing portals. So on your social pages, on your website, and within your page on the virtual art fair, because you are making perhaps a first impression on somebody, or you are reminding somebody of who you are, and that brand mark can help you do that. So you want to be consistent and make sure that your brand mark is present and distinctive. Also, your voice is consistent across all communications. This is basically just really good editing. I know that I have this problem myself, and I have to, sometimes I say I work in steel, sometimes I say I work in metal, and I'm trying to be more consistent with that. I say I work in metal because I do work in other mediums, like I've done some aluminum and copper and so forth, so or bronze. So being consistent on how you're expressing yourself and what you do needs to also be consistent across all of your mediums. And probably the most important thing, and why these videos are going to be important, is you have to find a way to get your personality or your brand to shine through this digital space. And so knowing what that personality is will be important, and trying to make sure that it comes through in the video, it comes through in the copy that you write, that your profile picture is reflective of who you are as an artist, that the work that you photograph also shows your personality. So you want to make sure that when you look at your loyalty, your awareness, your quality, and your associations, and you have that ready to go in advance of the art fair. So that might be something she might want to talk about in a video, okay? So really it's about thinking about, for your customer base, what are they looking for? What do they need to know about you? What do they need to know about your art in order to make the decision to purchase your art and to continue to purchase your art, to be a loyal client? And then also think about your ability to create intrinsic value in that transaction, because you're an artist. You don't want to be transactional in nature. You want to build that relationship so that you can get a price for your work, right? So in order to build that value of your product, you need to understand beyond, I need something to fit above my couch. You need to know the emotional connection and needs of your customer as well, as far as what is your art saying for them, and make sure that that is incorporated into your video content. Okay, so then once you've got an idea of who your customers are and kind of the tone of and the details that need to be communicated, you want to break it out into topics, right? So what are topics and stories that you can tell about you and your art that would fulfill the needs, wants, and desires of those customers, right? Because we're going to break this down into consumable pieces. So we don't want to tell the customer everything about us in one video. We're going to break it out into consumable pieces so that they can get to know you on their terms, okay? And then once you've got an idea of what those topics and stories might be, you're going to want to build an outline for each of those videos. And so again, if you think about it, I don't know how many of you consume videos on YouTube or TikTok or Snapchat right now. I can tell you I'm a bit addicted to TikTok. But and I can tell you that generally speaking, we don't want to spend a lot of time consuming information anymore. We like things in short little bite-sized pieces. So the best way to do that is to think about, I'm going to give them one message in this video, right? Just one clear idea I'm going to share with them. And then I want to know when I'm giving that message, how do I want my viewer to feel about that message? And what do I want that customer to do next? So as you're writing your outline of what's going to be included, think about the viewer and what they're interpreting what you're saying. And that will help your video and your content to be more compelling and engaging. You're always thinking about the viewer. And you can tell when you look at certain content on YouTube or on TikTok, you can tell some of those producers are more interested in what the customer is concerned in versus. So here's an example of content management. So in this example, I'm using a photographer, okay? And I'm not a photographer, so please, I might be a little off on this. But so as a customer, the first thing I want to think about my aesthetic and what I do and what my customers' needs are and what that intersection is. And so for this example, I've decided that my customers want to bring the outdoors in, and they have a love of nature and want to celebrate its beauty and mystery. So that is how I've defined what I do and where it intersects with what customers' desires and wants are, okay? And then based on that need, I feel like I could provide an artist statement, I could do a studio tour, I could do a behind the scenes video, I could do a how-to process, I could do some inspirational videos, and I could do like a down and dirty product video. So those would be my different content wells that I would develop. And then for this particular one, I've decided I'm going to build my first video, which is going to be my product video. Because if you're going to do any video, this is probably the one you should do because it's the one that's most directly related to selling something, okay? So my product outline is, the first thing I'm going to make sure that they know is that all of my nature scenes are from U.S. national parks. And that my objective is to capture the moment without disturbing the environment. Okay, so I'm going to give them kind of an overview of what my work means and how it's captured. And then the main message is going to be, all my products are available in X size and can be shipped within X days, right? And you might have some other information, but it's very specific on what I am communicating here. Here's where the photography was shot. Here's how I shot it, and here's what you can purchase from me and the size and when it can be shipped. So that's an example of an outline that you might write for a product video. Okay. So before we get into the actual storyboards, I want to talk a little bit about content tips. This is a repeat. We've talked about this in previous seminars, but worth repeating. When it comes to videos and text, less is more. Be specific, keep it clear. Your tone and the language that you use should reflect your brand. And most of you, I think, understand that because it's basically you're representing yourself, so you're just going to be yourself. And then the thing that I can't stress enough is there really should just be one message per video. Don't overcomplicate it, and don't try to provide too much information in one video, or people will either tune out or just not comprehend it all, okay? And then always know at the end of the video what you want the customer or the viewer to do next, your call to action. Because again, if we go and talk about the purpose of video, it's not any different than, let's say, a conversation you might have in your booth where a customer might say, I love your work. And you might respond like, thank you. I've been doing this for so long and this is how I do it. And they might ask a question like, oh, well, what are the materials you use? Well, here are the materials I use. So it's like a conversation that you're having with a customer, and you're providing them information in digestible bite size. And then after each video, you want to say, would you like to learn more? Or here's where you can go to purchase my product. Or I really love talking to you. Why don't you sign up for my newsletter? Whatever that call to action is, whatever behavior you're trying to drive, you want to make sure that it's very clear at the end of each video. For photography, I know that I think Larry Bergman had a session on this, and Mark, if maybe we can remind people to view this later, but your photography of your work is going to be really important because it's virtual. Again, the customer can't touch it or feel it. So everything you're selling needs to be photographed. And so you need to identify your style that reflects your brand, and so that your photography is consistent across your portfolio, right? And there are tons of techniques on how to photograph that, whether you can take a look at Larry's seminar, or you can look for them online on how to photograph your art. But you want to be able to create a library of photography based on your content objectives, right? So you're definitely going to want to perhaps show your work in a very clean studio environment with a nice clean background. You might want to show some close-ups to show your quality and the detail of the work that you've done. And you might want to show your work and your art in a let's say a lifestyle setting that reflects the type of customer that would purchase your work. Or if, let's say, your work works in a variety of lifestyles, be able to demonstrate that also with photography. So having a good library or breadth of photography will be important. And I can tell you, setting up a studio and taking photography is time consuming. It's not difficult to do, but it does take time. So make sure you give yourself plenty of time before the art fair to get some quality photography. Regarding video, we are going to want to create an individual video for each of your content wells. And then I'm going to ask you, after you're done creating these videos, to create some promotional messaging from each of those videos, because we're going to want to promote you at this art fair. And the best way to do that is with a quick promotional video. The videos that we're going to talk about today will range from 30 to 60 seconds. Like I said, we're doing bite-sized pieces of content, so it's easy to consume. And then there's always room for a longer video, a 2-minute video or longer for higher engagement. And those are great to have on your website. Those are great to have on your YouTube channel. And you can always, in your text and your call to action, let your customers know that there's more content available on that subject matter at your website. So again, this is a quick repeat, but preparing for your video shoot, again, preparation is everything. So quickly, for selecting locations, just, think about the viewer who is watching you. You want to remove clutter. You want to straighten up your environment. You want to create unique, purposeful areas in your studio if you're shooting in your studio. And everything should be purposefully placed. I can tell you, in the world of advertising and even in the world of movies, there isn't a prop on a set or in a commercial that wasn't thought about and touched and determined whether it belonged on that table or didn't belong on that table. So everything must be purposeful. Don't leave anything to happenstance, because you want the consumer to not be confused or to be distracted by something over your shoulder or something out of place. Making sure that you frame up each shot, that it looks professional. Think about your foreground, your midground, and your background, because the consumer will pay attention to that. And then your attire, it should be something that's very authentic. Pay attention to your wardrobe, your hair, your makeup. It should just reflect who you are. So you don't need to overdress or do anything unusual. We've talked about this before. If you're known for wearing hats, then wear your hat. If you're known for having a beautiful scarf, then wear your scarf. Whatever your signature statement look is, you should continue that statement look throughout your video series. Lighting is very important. Anything that is highlighted in green in this presentation has an external link that will take you to a short video to give you even more detail. And these are just particular links that I researched that I thought did a nice job of that. But lighting does control the mood of the video. So depending on your brand, you want to make sure that the lighting reflects what your brand represents. Most importantly, you want to make sure that your face is lit and that your work is lit. And you don't have to buy expensive lights. You can use any type of task lighting. A table lamp without the shade can also work. So play around with the lights that you currently have in your house and moving them around to make sure that the area that you're filming is well lit. Watch for shadows on your face. You don't want overhead lighting that makes you look spooky. Try not to film with a window behind you, because then you're just silhouetted. And natural light is honestly the greatest. So either a window off to the left or to the right or something in front of you is probably the best lighting experience you could set up. Camera shots, these should come natural. You see them all the time in television shows and in other videos, but we'll review them because you want to make sure you have incorporate a couple different types of camera shots to keep your video interesting. Just like today, Zoom meetings aren't that engaging. You're either looking at a screen or you're looking at a talking head. It's not what I would consider engaging video. That's not what you're going to create. You want to have a combination of different types of shots and movements within your shot and to create a story. So we're going to talk just briefly about that. I highly recommend a tripod with a handle and a phone adapter so that you can use smooth movement in your motion and so forth. If you have to handhold your camera, you want to capture the movement slower than you think you need to capture it, okay? And the tip that I always tell people is to have a nice long exhale with your breath as you're taking a shot, because it'll keep the camera steady. But I always recommend to take a longer video than you think you need, because you can always shore it up or edit it up in post-production. An establishing shot is important because it lets the customer know where they are. This could be a wide shot of your studio, a wide shot of a gallery that you're at, or a wide shot of an inspirational location, right? But you want to establish where you're at somewhere in your communication. Now for an interview shot, honestly, chest up is good. You want to have kind of equal space around your head and shoulders. You want the camera to kind of be eye level. I'm a fan of the interview style, especially if you're talking about yourself. It can be kind of make you feel uncomfortable. But, imagine somebody off camera, asking you a question, and then you're just responding to that question. So it's kind of like you're on 60 Minutes or something, right? So that's a style that you could use. It's really up to you what you feel most comfortable with. Feature shots are really important because that's going to engage your audience, and that's going to be close-ups of either a process or of a particular characteristic of your art that is unique or is showing off the quality of your work. But you really want to make sure that you get these, again, tilt or pan the camera so that's either up or down or left or right. Create a little motion, right, in the experience. And then again, get 3 seconds to 5 seconds per shot. That allows you to edit the tail ends of it as you need moving forward. The demonstration shot, if you want to do some how-to videos, the best one, you see this all the time, whether it's cooking shows or home improvement, where it's over the shoulder and it's tight on the person's hands. that's doing the work. You want the customer to feel like they're right there watching you do whatever step of that process is, and that's engaging and makes them want to learn more. Okay. Again, there's some green hyperlinks on this page. If you need any assistance, the one on demonstration shot, it actually shows you how to build kind of a boom that goes over your head where you can put your camera in and shoot straight down. And you can do it out of Home Depot PVC pipe. It's simple to do, especially if you're going to be doing this often. Okay. Sound design, also very important. Your voice is going to be an important element. You want to do some tests in each of your locations that you're shooting to make sure that you don't sound tinny. If you're in an area that it doesn't have any absorption, you can throw some blankets around to kind of absorb the sound. If it's muffled, you're going to have to get closer to the mic. Make sure you're aware of any background noises. That could be, close your doors, close your windows, ask your kids to go play outside for a while, and just try to control that environment. You could always use post-production to manage audio. So I've done a lot of videos where I don't do any on camera, and I don't at all. It's all just, the process. And then I might do a voiceover post-production. And that works great too. And that way you can actually control the audio a little better and control the volume of audio on each segment that you produce. I highly recommend using music, whether it's in the intro or the extra, or also maybe during a demonstration video, or maybe when you're doing an inspiration video, where music can add to the tone, can add to the emotion of the content. And so you want to think about that too, as music is your friend. You should try to use it, okay? And we talked, of course, about recording your video or your voiceover separately for better audio, okay? And you can also hire or purchase an external mic if you need to, and here's a link here for some good product reviews. So now you've decided, you know what, I think I want to do some video. Most reason you're probably on this seminar is you're already thinking about it. So what I thought Mark and I talked about was, well, what would that storyboard or what would that segment look like based on those different content wells? And then this is a guide. It's something for you to start. Starting is always the hardest, right? Eventually you'll figure out what works for you, but think of this as a starting point for your first virtual art fair. Okay, so the way that I'm going to share these storyboards for you is I'm using this template. So in most videos, there will be segments, right? They could be separated by time, they could be separated by location, the segment could be separated by topic, okay? And then in each of these segments, you're going to have content, what you want to say or what's your main message during that segment. And then what is the video to support that segment? And then how long that segment should be. So that's how I'm going to share each of these storyboards with you. They are examples only. You don't have to follow it. It's a starting point, okay? And all of them are shorter and bite-sized pieces, again, to try to encourage consumers to continue to engage with you. All right, so let's start with the artist statement storyboard. Again, I encourage you to use music, voiceover, graphics, supers, and transitions that reflect your brand. Our last video, we talked a little bit about transitions. Transitions should be used when you are changing the subject or you are changing locations. You don't want to overdo transitions because then they become distractive and they disrupt the storytelling. You shouldn't really notice a transition in a video. If you do, it's too heavy-handed, okay? So think about that, all right? Unless the topic is so boring, you need transitions to kind of hype it up a little bit, but that won't be the case for anybody on this call. All right, so let's start with introduction. Now, I'm gonna recommend that you do an introduction for every video. The introduction can change based on the topic. Or you can keep the same introduction for every video. It's up to you and how much energy you want to put into each of these videos. So you always want to introduce yourself, right? Don't assume that the person remembers, that they remember who you are. And your video might be shared outside the virtual art fair, or you might want to repurpose this video in a social media post or in an ad somewhere. So make it easy for you to always make sure your name is, you're introducing yourself at the front of your video. Talk about the mediums that you work in, and then clearly state what the main message of this video you're going to see is, okay? And then particularly for the artist statement, here's an opportunity to provide some additional information that establishes your reputation. It could be something off of your CV. It could be your degree, or a specific special exhibit that you've done, or how long you've been in this business, or whatever it is that makes you unique and provides credibility to you as an artist. This would be in your artist statement, this would be the place that you would want to promote that. And that's why an interview style could help with this, because it will feel a little more comfortable, because nobody likes to brag about themselves. Or you could use supers and voiceovers to do this if you are even a little less braggadocious, right? So that's another opportunity. From the video support, I definitely recommend the half shot with the interview style, or you can look directly into the camera. You can intercept, you can cut in your introduction with examples of your work. And I do recommend that you use the see and say approach here. So when you say, hello, my name is Kelly O'Neill, you would want Kelly O'Neill to come up right below you with your name spelled out correctly, right? When you say your mediums, you might want to add that in a super. When you highlight maybe a special accomplishment, you might want to shorthand that also in the super. Again, that see and say is going to help with comprehension, because that way the people are hearing you, they're seeing it, and they're reading it. So 3 different cognitive senses are being used, and that will help with memory, okay? Now, your introduction shouldn't be any more than 10 seconds, right? But it can be longer. It's really up to you, all right? So the next part, and again, there are many ways of presenting an artist statement. This is just one way. You might want to do something different. So for the next segment, I'm recommending maybe you talk a little bit about who are your influences and how it's reflected in your work. And here you would want to obviously name your influences and then maybe show how they have influenced your work. So you could, in the video portion of this, you could show images of your influencer. Maybe you show a picture of the actual artist, or maybe you show pictures of that artist's work. Maybe it's not even an artist. Maybe your art is more socially or politically motivated. Maybe it's a person of influence, right? Or a historical figure, right? So here's the opportunity here to perhaps present that person and then show how your work has been influenced by them. And so what we're trying to do then is kind of create that uniqueness about who you are as an artist and why your art is unique, because I'm going to guess that your influences and how it's reflected in your work is probably unique from every other artist. So here's an opportunity for you to really demonstrate your differentiation, okay? And then finally, how that interpretation of that influence makes your art unique. So here's where you would highlight whatever that is, and then you want to show that uniqueness, okay? Both of these segments, I'm thinking about 30 seconds, mix it up how you want, but just make sure that you think about when we talked about what the customer's emotional needs and desires were. Think about how what you're saying is fulfilling that when they're thinking about purchasing your art. And then, of course, at the end of the video, you want to wrap it up, right? One of the things that I've talked about in my previous videos is if you're uncomfortable talking on camera, it's always good to like memorize your first sentence and your last sentence, right? And that will help end the video with confidence, right? You've seen a lot of people and videos and they'll go, that's all I got to say. You know, no, there's nothing else. Versus someone that says, you know, and that's the end of my video, right? You're not actually going to say that, but whatever it is that you're doing, in most cases, it's going to be what that call to action is. Learn more at your website, or I'll see you at the show on Thursday, or whatever that call to action happens to be. I want to make sure that you're really clear and about what it is you want them to do next. So here, instruct where the viewer can learn more and what to expect, wherever you're sending them in that call to action, what they can expect to find. So if you're sending them to your website, what can they find in your website? Well, you can read my post blogs, shop my store, and see more video content, whatever that happens to be, right? Give them a reason to do the next step, whether it's subscribe to your channel, like your page, shop your store. And then here also, where I think you need consistency, is your logo or your brand mark and your contact information. You know, make sure that it's consistent on every communication and that it's clear and easy to read. Okay, so that would be the artist statement storyboard, right? The next one we're going to talk about is studio tour. And this should be familiar to many of you since we talked about that specifically in our last seminar. Introduction would be the same. The next segment would be to tour your studio. And this is where you want to show the area that you work in and why it works for you. So you would probably use an establishing shot so they get kind of the lay of the land, right? And then you would go in and describe the smaller areas of your studio, right? And then finally, we'll start large and then we're going to get more detailed. Then maybe you want to show maybe some of the tools that you use. And I recommend to share something that's interesting, like a secret or a tip on how you use your tool. It's just a way for them to get to know you a little bit and for them to know that your art is special. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that most acrylic artists paint with a palette knife, right? A lot of you just use a palette knife. They're not even using brushes. So talk about that. If you're a photographer and maybe you use a prism outside your lens to get some unique visuals, you know, like, or maybe use a paper roll, a towel to get whatever that unique tool is that would be unexpected. This would be a great place to talk about it here. And then of course, from a video support, you want to show the close-up of your tools and then maybe even demonstrate the technique, how that tool is used. I always recommend at this point to talk about what you're working on because you want the customer to feel like, you know, this is a dynamic live studio. It's not just a place, right? Like you're actually working in this location. So, you know, let's say you are a painter or maybe you are a photographer and there's something that you're doing and maybe on your computer with digital art or there's a particular painting that you've just started. You know, demonstrate where you are in that process and what you're working on. And I always recommend, very much so like they do in any other demonstration videos, is that you narrate that really well. So as if a blind person was watching you, you're going to tell them exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. That will engage them more and help them follow along. Here's where you want to use the over-the-shoulder shot for close-ups. And then if you're doing something that is unique or technical, like a technical term, this would be a great place to use supers to support the technique. Or perhaps, you know, a little known, a special fact that would make the storytelling a little more compelling. But remember, this is just, it's not just like, here's my studio. It really is telling a story about where you work and how you're inspired by your environment and how you make this art happen, right? And remember, you're trying to create an emotional response to every video, how you want that customer to feel after they've done watching your video. So how are you doing that in your store, in your studio tour, okay? Of course, your wrap up, same as I mentioned before, instruct them what you want them to do next, right? Offer a reason, you know, maybe there's an incentive or something. And then of course, make sure you show your logo and your contact information, video content. So right now we've already produced 2 videos. We're on our 3rd video, right? So this one is the behind the scenes storyboard, okay? Now this can be, it could be a gallery opening, it could be a project installation, it could be an art fair setup, it could be shopping for supplies. I did a video of myself at the salvage yard, right, where I was finding scrap metal at, you know, in a muddy, rainy, filthy, disgusting pile of junk, and people loved it, right? They loved the fact that I was like, you know, digging through piles of junk, and then just talking about my little treasures that I find. So it could be your behind the scenes is, remember, it's one message. It can be simple. It's just to engage the customer so they get to know you a little bit better and help differentiate your art from someone else's, okay? So again, introduction. In this situation, I would kind of recommend that you do the introduction at the scene, right? Instead of using your pre-produced introduction, this would be a good place to reintroduce yourself, because you're not only going to be telling who you are, but you're going to be talking about where you're at, right? So talking about where you're at is going to be an important segment. So it could be, you know, if you're at an art fair or you're at a gallery opening, you definitely want to do that establishing shot. You want to be able to give your viewer some bearings on what's going to happen next. So set up the situation, where you are, and why are you there? What's the purpose, right? And then, of course, from a video point of view, use wide shots and close-ups of an environment. It would be great, especially on this type of behind the scenes, if you had someone else doing the filming. I mean, you could definitely set up tripods and so forth if you want. That would be fine, but it would be great for someone to follow you around or something to make it a little more documentarian. I think that would be cool, but that's completely up to you. But in this situation, you know, they want to see you interacting because it's behind the scenes. They want to see you doing what you naturally do, you know, kind of like, you know, the lion in its environment, you know, hunting the antelope, right? They want to see that, right? So next, after you've established where you are, you want to introduce the players, because in most cases, you're not going to be by yourself. So there's a little more setup to this. So you want to talk about who else is there in this behind the scenes. What is their role? And you might want to introduce them, right? That, again, makes you more personal, makes you more human, makes the video more interesting, right? Don't forget to use your supers for the names and titles. And again, hopefully you can get someone else doing the filming in the situation. Then you want to share the experience. So you're obviously at a location for a reason. So bring the audience in by narrating what is happening or talking through what you're doing, right? Describe what they are seeing. And again, that will help them engage more with what you're doing. Again, having somebody else film this, if you can. You could always do the audio post-production on this. So let's say I'm going to use the example that I did when I was digging through everything. Now I filmed it myself, right? I didn't have a tripod. I didn't follow any of my own rules. But that would have been really cool. It would have been cool to get a nice wide shot of me on top of the pile digging, right? And then I could do a voiceover after the fact and talk about maybe some great finds that I find or another experience. That would have been a little more engaging than what I actually presented. And then, of course, the wrap up. Again, encourage you to do the wrap up here on location. It will make it more interesting. And again, give them a reason to subscribe, to sign up for your newsletter, to shop, or to get new content, right? And then, of course, always your logo and your contact information at the end. The other one, and had a couple of people show a couple of these, and I can't remember the artist. It was a beautiful picture. But now that I know how that picture of that bird was made, I'm impressed, right? Because the steps and the equipment that it took to make that paper, press that paper, color that paper, to, lay out that paper, create the image of the bird was phenomenal and very inspiring. So the how-to process is important if you've got a process that is unique and creates value in what you make, right? So that picture of that bird was worth every penny that he was charging for it. I thought it should have been higher, right? But based on what I saw, that was a good value for that particular bird picture because of the effort and the time that went into making it. So again, introduction, same as before. You're going to set up the project, and I guess the best way to describe this is, think about a cooking show or think about a home repair video. It's basically straightforward like that, right? So you're going to set up the project. You're going to lay out the steps in your process. You're going to talk about what needed to complete the project. You're going to use a variety of wide shots and close-ups of the items that are needed. And I always recommend at the very beginning is maybe showing the final product and say, here's what I'm going to make today, right? Like they do in the cooking shows. See this beautiful chocolate cake, right? Well, let's talk about how I made this chocolate cake, right? And then they go through the steps of making the chocolate cake. It sets the customer up to see, ooh, how did they make that? I want to know, okay? Then of course, after you set up the project, steps in the process. And there might be 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. It's 10 seconds each on each of these steps. You don't want to take too long. You're just trying to engage them, educate them, and get them interested. And more importantly, create value in what you do. So here's you use the over the shoulder shot. You want to describe what you're doing as if someone's got their eyes closed and they're just listening. So you want to be really clear on what you're doing. Supers are wonderful for emphasizing your actions that you're taking. And for longer processes, like for example, if I'm working on a project, I might have to grind something. Grinding is painful to watch and to listen to, so you can speed that up and add music on top of it. And you can do all that in post, okay? And of course, the wrap up, you're gonna show off the finished product. So this is gonna be its own wrap up. And same thing, what do you want that customer to do next? In this case, you probably want them to buy the product you just showed them how to make. So talk about its size, talk about how much it cost and where to go to buy. Inspiration storyboard. This is really, this can be anything. Definitely recommend your introduction is on location, and then just share your inspiration. Okay, the last one is product storyboard. This is for everything that is emotional about the inspiration. A product storyboard is more about content, right? Quick introduction, and you want to get right to the product. So basically this is your retail selling process. So you want to discuss the product. You want to include the title, the mediums, dimensions, or whatever you would normally say when you're introducing your product for sale, okay? Your video support, this is probably the most important quality video you need to have. So this is where lighting is going to be the most important thing, the environment, the most important thing. You need to make sure you get some beautiful beauty shots. You want to use wide shots, close-ups of the details, stage it in a real environment. Use the supers when you're describing the product. Use the psychology of see and say here for sure. And of course, music. I would use music throughout. So even over your voiceover, you should have some music that supports the emotional connection of that product or of that client and that customer. And then of course, here you're instructing from a wrap-up point of view, where the viewer can purchase and learn more. Here also is where you're probably going to want to include any payment policies or offer, any type of customer-friendly policies. So just a couple more slides, and we're going to talk just briefly about the follow-up plan. And I want to talk about the marketing purchase funnel. For those of you that were in my last seminar, we talked about this as it relates to, building a clientele. You can start with building awareness, and you move through familiarity, opinion, consideration to purchase and repurchase. These videos are serving the middle part of this funnel, okay? They're helping you push people from the top of that funnel all the way to the bottom, because they're helping them become familiar with you and your work. You're influencing their opinion of your work. You're helping them consider what you do and to purchase your work. So we're doing these videos for many reasons. Pushing people through the purchase funnel is really one of the main reasons, right? It's going to help you build more sales. All right, so we talked about this already, but it's worth repeating. Before the virtual art fair, audit your content and update. You've just created 5 or 6 new videos. You want to make sure you add those to your website. You could put them under About the Artist section, or you could create a special section of videos. It's really up to you. Make sure you put the videos on your Facebook business page. Make sure you get them posted to the YouTube channel. Don't forget about hashtags on YouTube channel, so people who are looking for something can find those videos, right? And then if your newspaper or your newsletter template currently does not support video, you need to update your newspaper template to support video, because you're going to want to start including these videos in your newsletter. So basically, you're going to be investing time to make these videos for this virtual art fair, but these videos are going to work hard for you throughout the rest of the year, okay? Then you're going to develop your promotional plan. 2 to 3 weeks before the art fair, you're going to take your 60-second, 90-second video that you have on, I don't know, let's say you do a 90-second on inspiration. I want you to edit that down to a quick 15, right? And you're going to use that inspiration video in a promotional message on Twitter or Instagram or somewhere, and you're going to drive them to see more at the art fair, and you're going to use that URL. So your goal 2 to 3 weeks out is to drive your clientele to that virtual art fair, and using those 15-second snips. Maybe less, maybe 5 or 6 seconds, whatever you feel works for the messaging. The idea is to get them interested, curious, so that they want to go see more, okay? Write some blogs, some tweets, and then don't forget to update your press kit. And now that you're starting to post, make sure that you are responding and commenting in real time. So for this 2 to 3 week period, you need to have your phone near you. And so if there's someone comments, you're right there to respond while they're still online. And then include another reason they should attend the virtual art fair. So let's say they see your video, it's inspiration of the video, and they say, wow, that was really cool. Where was that at? And you could say, oh, I filmed that at Kensington Metro Park. And then you could say, I also captured a lot of new photography of the wildlife there. I'll have a whole new series. Make sure you see me at the virtual art fair, right? So you're giving them another reason to attend that virtual art fair, okay? All right. The other thing is you have to have your contact information available in a consistent format on each page and each screen or communication. I don't know what the virtual art fair template looks like, but you just want to make sure that you're making it easy for your clients to get a hold of you, all right? You want to have your text and your phone number. You want to be able to accept texts. You want to let them know your email and how quickly you'll respond to them in email. You want to have your social media messenger ready to go. You know, the customer will decide how they want to engage with you. I know a lot of people that say, well, I just don't do social media. That's perfectly fine, but realize that you maybe are alienating half of potential customers by not engaging in social media, right? Same thing with emails. I've heard people, I only look at my email once a week. That's just not acceptable, right? In today's world, you need to stay on top of your emails. Just like a business, when you call a business, they answer the phone. They don't send you to voicemail, right? So you have to have that same kind of customer policy that any successful business would have, okay? Because in a sense, you are an online business now. Okay, communicate your intentions on how and when you will follow up. This is part of your customer-friendly policies. And I always recommend trying to set the appointment during the first conversation or interaction. So if the customer wants to engage with you, try to immediately set that appointment. So it could be like That's great. Let's talk. Are you available Tuesday or Wednesday? Right? So just try to keep that relationship moving, right? Also, you know, normally when you're at an art fair and a gallery, you can look that customer directly in the eye and say, thank you for that order. Here, we don't have that. Highly recommend that you have handwritten thank you notes with your shipments, right? That's adding that extra personal touch, and you're investing in that relationship. Encourage within that thank you note, encourage more engagement. So make sure you encourage them to sign up for your newsletter, visit your YouTube page, visit your next exhibition, any special offers that you have, right, and new products coming out. You know, try to, again, continue that relationship. So that's what I have today. I went a little over, sorry, Mark. But I wanted to make sure that we talked about the follow-up plan, because I think that's probably just as important as the videos themselves. And for those of you who hadn't participated in previous seminars, the InShot app is a great phone app that you can use. The iMovie is a good app too. There's definitely some good software that you can put right on your laptop or on your desktop for editing video. So Larry Berman had a question while you're thinking of your questions. He says, where is the best place or website for royalty-free music? Many of your software applications provide royalty-free music. So I recommend when you're looking at what software you want to use, pick a software that provides a library of music. You can also Google free music, and they will give you some selections there too. That's an option. But for ease of production, try to find a piece of software that already has it integrated. It just makes it easier to use. I think as adults, we learn from doing more than anything. So you guys are such professionals and have so much experience. Your iPhone has software already built in. I think iMovie comes with your iPhone. There are applications you can download at the App Store that are free, and there's some that cost money. Debbie, you purchased the InShot, and your videos look great. So you've had some luck with the InShot. You take everything you just heard, which is a lot, and then you go out and you practically try it. I think the product video is going to be the most important one for these virtual shows, and you need to have quality photography. It's easy to take 3 photos for free, right? But you're going to need to have every single piece of art you have photographed.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up here. If you have some more questions, we'll hang out. Well, thank you all. We'll look forward to seeing you back next week.